Hey, we're back again. It's Bias, it's Trav. These are the Sports Bag Bros and Podcast 5th episode. If you're on YouTube right now, you can see the number 5 in front of your camera. If you're just listening via Spotify, you should know that 5 comes after 4. We did 4 yesterday, and we're going to get into some sports because we know the sports conversation has to happen. Bias and I are here to take you on your sports journey. That's why we're here. So please join us, whether it's through Spotify, you can download us and listen to us on your long way home, or your long trip to wherever it is, or you can come to YouTube if you're watching it right now. YouTube, subscribe to the channel. More importantly, like the page, like the channel. That does even more for the algorithm in terms of everyone getting a chance in the sports community and other places to have the conversation along with us. So make sure you get down with that. We don't try to have the intro, at least not right now. We don't have the outro, at least not right now. We get straight to the point, and Bias is here. I'm here. And the first point of the day is the
Hang on,
NFL.
let me add to that. You can follow us on Facebook. We got the Sports Bag Bros page. And as of today, we are now on Twitter, Sports Bag Bros.
Exactly.
So follow us on Twitter.
Make sure you keep up with those things because as you can see, I forgot those things. Bias has it on his mind. So those are also the other ways you can get in contact with us, give us some show ideas, or just look and see what we're tweeting. You know, this social media age, we better take advantage of it like everyone else is. The sports community is a huge community. We don't just look at one sport. We try to cover a multitude of sports that have probably the most interest. Sometimes they may have just a fleeting interest, but we would like to get into the conversation nonetheless. As Bias said, Twitter, you can check that out. You can check out our Facebook page of the same names, Sports Bag Bros Podcast. This is our 5th episode. We're on YouTube right now. Download us on Spotify and check it out right there. So getting into the top of this order. We're in the baseball season, but the top of the order is sports nonetheless. The NFL showing their brand of hypocrisy again. You have Isaiah Rodgers of the Colts, who is now the latest one under investigation by the NFL for gambling. Is the NFL right on this one?
I think they are right because he was gambling on NFL games, including Colts games. And you have to draw the line somewhere. You know, betting is one thing, but if you're in the NFL, you know, you have inside knowledge on certain things. And, you know, you're using that to your advantage, or you can share that information with people you know so they can use it to their advantage. You know, that takes away the integrity of the game.
Yeah, right now there aren't many details out, but from what I've gathered and from what I've read from some of the articles, because you got to be some critical thinkers here. We just can't go with one article or 2 articles. You go from a multitude of articles. And from what I've seen, it seems as if he's done a bet, $25, $50, a couple of low-end bets, but one of them is a low 4-figure bet. Either way, it could be compromised if he's betting on his own team and he has some type of way of getting something, affecting the outcome of a game. And you're right. I mean, I think they got it right this time around. The NFL has been wrong in other cases, but right now, and by the way, he's one of those few people who has not embraced it, but he's owned up to it. You know, he's like, he apologized. He didn't do the usual, I didn't know, the usual, when they get caught with PEDs or even gambling, he didn't know it was someone else. It was an account under an associate of his, and they drew it back to him, or maybe someone said something. Regardless, he was caught, and when he was caught, he has admitted it now, and now the investigation is on. Most likely, he's probably going to get suspended. How long is his honesty going to make it a shorter term than it should have been, or is Roger Goodell going to hold a hard stance against this and give him a half a season or more?
Right. His statement, he seems very remorseful. That may work in his favor, but if Goodell wants to make an example. Earlier there were Lions players who were suspended for gambling. He's going to want to nip it in the bud at some point, and it seems like players are just not getting the message. And hopefully, for this guy, he's not the example, but at some point, he's going to have to set an example of somebody.
Yeah, he is. And I don't think it will be an example because he did admit it, but I think the hard stance is going to try to be quasi-made because, this is the same league that's partnered up with Fan Duel, a gambling page. You know, they never would have been synonymous at one point. Now they are. You know what I mean? And now you're going to talk about the players. Yeah, the players, whether they're playing fantasy football or if they're just doing anything that has some type of a gambling element, they're getting in trouble for it. You know, Calvin Ridley, who played for the Atlanta Falcons, was the latest big name casualty of that same rule. And he was suspended indefinitely. And then finally was allowed to play again. And the Jaguars traded for him, knowing that his suspension would have been up. They needed a real number one because I don't believe Christian Kirk is a number one. He can fall the number two now, the way the Jaguars have been playing, the way Trevor Lawrence has been playing well as a quarterback and improving and maturing. Add Calvin Ridley now coming off of the I was gambling bandwagon, and he makes a better team for them. But nevertheless, that's the biggest name in, I think, recent history that has been suspended by Roger Goodell, and it was an indefinite suspension.
Right. For Ridley, I think he thought because he was away from the game at the time that it was okay. But if you have an NFL contract, you're in the NFL, so that's no excuse. But you know that just lends to him thinking maybe it was okay.
But the one thing when I was reading all of these different articles that came up is not even necessarily that he had gambled. It was gambling while in the building. You cannot be on NFL property and gamble. So I guess if you're at home and you gamble, there's no problem there. But I guess also when you're betting on your own team, I guess there may be something there with a conflict of interest. But it seems like it's a consensus. He was on the premise of the facility gambling. So you're in the locker room, you decide to gamble, or you're in the lounge in the locker room, you want to gamble, or you're somewhere in the offices of the NFL stadium and you're gambling. But if you're outside of the stadium in a parking lot in a grocery store, you might want to gamble and it's okay. As long as you're not gambling on your own team, I guess.
Yeah, I think the NFL is probably still trying to find their way with this gambling situation. But, you know, they've been providing injury reports for years.
Exactly.
What was the point of that? You know, for the gamblers, for Vegas can have accurate spreads. You know, so they've been involved with gambling, just not out in front like they are now, partnering with Fan Duel, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's going to be trial and error.
You know, the NFL has taken a hard stance in the past, the real NFL, the early stages of the NFL, when, what was it, Paul Hornig and Merlin Olsen was caught gambling. It was a real hard stance back then, but it was also a different NFL, not making the money they're making now. Vegas is definitely a lot further ahead than it was back in the 50s and 60s, and there's a lot of money to be made. And as you mentioned, what is the importance for them to give an injury report so that you know a 7.5-point line with a prominent player as the leader of the team or being the reason why it's 7.5. Now he's injured. Now it's a 4.5 line. You know what I mean? Why does the NFL see it as important that they let these injuries be known? Because they're going to try to justify it by saying making the even playing field. We want to know that your players are injured so that you know our players are injured. And people manipulate it anyway, like Bill Belichick. Everyone's injured until game day.
Right. Everybody's questionable until they suit up, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know, for the common fan who doesn't think about betting, may not even know what a betting line or point spread is, what the injury report, you know, that may just have them feel like, oh man, we're gonna lose because our running back's out. But it serves no other purpose.
It doesn't. It doesn't serve any purpose, and they do it within ample time of a game about starting. And the ability of whoever's going to gamble being able to have the information to add to their decision of whether they're going to take one team or the other. So the NFL needs to stop with their hypocrisy. They've done it for years, and they're going to continue to do it. And when gambling becomes becomes legal in all 50 states, because right now I believe it's all 50 states, then it's going to become more of a problem. Does the NFL make it more of a problem, or do they act like they have nothing to do with it? They're just partners with places like Fan Duel, and I'm sure other gambling outlets when you look at some of the local venues in which the NFL plays.
Yeah, I mean, what the NFL says and what they really do are two different things.
Always has been. The hypocrisy lives. Billions of dollars every year. I believe the last year was $8 or $9 billion the NFL had made. And that's just the money that's coming into the NFL through sponsorships, through ticket sales, all of those things that we know, merchandising and whatnot. But gambling has a huge thing to do with it as well, because the NFL football is bet more than any other sport, period. Let alone the Super Bowl itself. But I'm saying just throughout the entire year. Baseball plays all of these games. Football plays all of these games, but they get the bulk of the money when it comes down to the gambling.
So right, and that doesn't even include the squares and stuff like that,
Most of them are squares. The most of the bettors that move the line, well, the big, the sharps move the line when they have the heavy money.
No. I mean the squares where you get the numbers on the two different.
Oh yeah, that too. I think it's about the square gamblers.
Oh no.
Because that's
the squares and the parlay cards.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Oh yeah, parlay. Man, I used to be one of those parlaying fools back in the day. Man, I was getting 6 parlays out of an entire season. I thought I did well winning 6 parlays throughout the course of a season when it was 16 games. I would win like 16 parlays or 17 parlays about 6-7 times throughout the entire season and thought I was making it. But no, parlays are sucker bets, and I was the sucker every bit of the way. All of these decades thought I was doing well. And then I realized what real putting change down meant. But anyway, moving on from that, Greg Newsome II and Perion Winfrey from the Cleveland Browns, they were robbed by 6 masked gunmen at gunpoint and had their jewelry taken. When are the NFL players or athletes going to realize that they are targets? And this is right before, I believe, the Cleveland Browns minicamp. These guys wearing this kind of jewelry, always brandishing the jewelry. People know they have money. Even if you're a backup to the backup, you have some money. And there's always someone out there who's looking to pry it from you. Now, I'm sure that there had to be somewhat of an inside job. Someone's been steady casing these guys because they knew exactly when to get them.
Yeah, I wonder what's going on in Cleveland, actually, because another Browns player had his car stolen. So are they flaunting everything they have? Are they drawing too much attention to themselves, showing what they have, and people who don't have want it?
Yeah, you know what? I think that's exactly what it is. They are targets because of what they're doing. They're completely ostentatious. That's exactly what it is. They want to show people they have something. I mean, the backup to the backup still gets paid more than the average person in the country. And he wants to show that he made it. He wants to show that he has something. And there's always someone out there, if they hang around, not even just these people's houses. They don't have to be around the houses. You can just follow them straight from the stadium. Because a lot of them don't go home. They probably go to a club or whatever, or somewhere that's not their home. And you can just get a pattern on them, get a beat on them, and then something like this happens. It's not just the NFL. It's happened to NBA players in the past. It's happened to, well, as we mentioned off air, Floyd Mayweather had something like that happen years ago, and it was his own boys doing an inside job. You know what I mean? I don't know how definitive that was, but that was seemed to have been the consensus story when it happened. But you wear this kind of jewelry, someone's going to be after you. I mean, it happens to rappers all the time. We don't even mention them. But when it comes down to this athletes, you're going to be a target.
I think athletes got to be smarter about what type of situations they put themselves in. They were coming out of a club at 3:30 in the morning. What's going to happen that late at night or that early in the morning? Usually nothing good.
Yeah, and you can't use or say anything about common sense because, I'll go back to like when Mike Tyson had gotten in trouble with the Desiree Washington thing, whether it was legit or not. This is not the point of the bringing it up. One of the reporters, I can't remember her name. I think it was Sonia something. I can't remember her name. But anyway, she was like, well, because someone's walking in a bad neighborhood at 2:00 in the morning that has a Rolex watch, are they asking to be robbed? Yes, they are. There isn't any common sense to it. You don't walk to some of the worst hoods or even some of the better hoods. You have a better chance of walking through Beverly Hills with that kind of thing 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But
they may not be exactly asking for it, but they should know better.
They should know better, exactly. And those things happen. So even though that was an analogy for what the original point there was, well, was Desiree Washington acting like that, or was she asking for it from Mike Tyson because she wore this and because she went to his room, even though I knew how he was? That's the argument there. But it's kind of the same thing when you talk about because you're wearing it and I want it, and you happen to be in my neighborhood and this isn't a good neighborhood. Well, I want it and I'm going to try to take it. So you should expect it instead of acting surprised when it happens to you. And this is what happened to these guys here. So Greg Newsome II and Perrion Winfrey from the Cleveland Browns. A little lighter these days.
No one's been arrested.
Their jewelry. A little lighter.
No arrests have been made so far, so we'll see what happens. But
exactly. No, if it was enough jewelry, there were 6 guys who had taken the jewelry. Well, unless they go to a pawn shop, or they might be in cahoots with a pawn shop. You never know.
It was like a hit squad, 6 guys in masks. It was a coordinated effort.
Exactly. When people want you, they want you, and they can get you. And people like that, I don't think it was just on a whim that they decided to go after somebody like that. Or this is probably not their first rodeo and going after jewels.
Guessing they didn't have the masks in their back pocket or in the glove compartment. Hey, let me go grab my mask out the car right quick.
Yeah, it seems like the work of people who might have done this kind of thing before. This is a heist, and I guess by the kind of jewelry they took from them, those kinds of dollars and cents makes it somewhat of a heist. So, those guys once again a little lighter going into minicamp. Maybe they're 40 times faster now since they're a little lighter. So you just don't know. Hey, it helps. So we can move on from that. Hey, we can talk a little Steve Kerr. He was on Dray's podcast. You had seen or heard more about that than I have. So let's get into that.
So I just saw a quote. He was admiring the Miami Heat culture, how they all play for each other. They all just want to win. And the quote that got my attention is, he says, nobody goes into the locker room talking about they need more playing time. And if you followed the Warriors, Poole probably had an attitude because he wanted more time. Jonathan Kuminga was a big-time contributor to last year's championship. Yep. You couldn't find him on the court this year unless it was a blowout in the playoffs. So who knows what happened with him, but I'm sure he wasn't happy about his playing time. So, and it was easy to see that there's a rift between the veterans, Steph, Clay, Draymond, and those guys, Looney, and the younger guys. The younger guys want their shine. And I think Kerr was trying to send a message. Now, will these guys find themselves in the new uniforms next year? Or is he trying to get them to come on board? And I don't know where Trav went. I'm on here by myself.
Oh, no, I put you on a split screen by yourself.
Oh, okay.
I highlighted you a little bit. So, hey,
you got
the real gist.
Give me a heads up. You're going to do something like that. I'm like, I was going to have to talk for another 30 minutes.
You came to buy a show for a minute. Yo, but again,
the Poole and Kuminga, they're very talented. I'm sure they would rather have them fall in line and develop further for the Warriors than having to trade them away. But I think Kerr's trying to send a message.
Yeah, but what about these so-called subliminal messages these coaches are sending? Instead of going into the locker room, speaking to these guys one-on-one, the rest of the world saw what happened to this team throughout the season. We saw what happened during the preseason. We knew going into this season that the continuity and the chemistry wasn't what it once was because of what had happened. So for him to say this going out the door when he could have easily had spoken to the team about it, what was the purpose of him saying this? To put a fire under him? In today's age, with these players, whining all the time about the smallest things, they're going to take offense to that.
Probably, but we don't know if he actually spoke to them or not.
Oh, yeah.
This is just what he said on Dray's podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
Who knows if he, after the podcast, if he called them up and said, hey, guys, this is what I said, and dealt with them one-on-one. Who knows? Or maybe he just said it not even thinking of his players. He just was admiring what the Heat players are.
Yeah, but that was the easy way to get the message to them, his own team, by saying what the Heat did, because they were complete opposites. The Heat, even though they're not as talented as Denver, we've spoken about that on several occasions, and we see that when they play. But this is one of those cases where the heart and desire of a team can overcome the deficiency in talent. And this is what has happened right now. And now they're going into Miami tomorrow, 1-1 with an opportunity, at least in their past, they were able to get 2 wins at home. They can leave this thing realistically at 3-1 heading back to Denver.
Yeah, I mean, they have 3 at home, right?
3 at home or 2 at home?
I can't remember if it's 2-3.
They changed the format,
right.
But
can't remember if it's 2-3-2 or 2-2-1-1-1. But if it's 2-3-2, hey, they would want us not even get on the plane again. But Denver's
That's true.
I think Denver's too good to lose 4 in a row.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely believe that they're too good to lose 4 in a row. If that format is like that, even if the format wasn't like that, they're still too good to lose 4 in a row. Not that it takes anything away from the Miami Heat, because theoretically they shouldn't be in this spot to begin with. But their heart desire and winning when they need to win is why they're here. The ball didn't just drop or fell in by accident. These guys made it happen. So at the very least, they could be 3-1 realistically. If it does go back to Denver, or if it's another game in Miami, 3-1, you like to be in that spot better than being even knowing you have to go back on the road, back into Mile High Stadium or back in Mile High State or city, and have to contend with the team that is the better team, that has some desperation on their side this time.
Yeah, the Heat proved they can win in Denver. Now it's up to the Nuggets to prove they can win in Miami.
Yeah, and we've seen Denver win and on the road, but they're expected to win on the road. They were the best team, at least statistically, at least going by the record in basketball. So you were expected to, kind of go through, especially now the 8th seed. But I don't think too much of the 8th seed right now. It's a nice storyline. But when you're an 8th seed that wins your first round, I think the seeding matters no more. And we've seen that, and Miami has proven it, that they've gotten to this point as an 8th seed. But yeah, Denver still as the better team. I'm still expecting them to win the entire series and get their first championship, but you just can't count Miami out. We've both been kind of like very hard pressed to pick these games and have some type of precision to it when picking these games, because they just been hard as hell to pick. And we watch these games like everybody else. Vegas is trying to be slick by putting that 2.5 point line out there on the road for Denver, knowing doggone well the squares are going to jump on it, and then Miami's going to do what Miami does, or more than likely will do what they do.
They did the same in the Boston series. Boston were favorites in Miami as well.
Exactly, and the players play the game. Vegas doesn't do anything but make the line, and all they want is an even split of the money being bet. That's all they want. They don't care who wins or loses. They want to win. They want you betting both of them equally. That's their goal.
So, yeah, I just think they're going to be hard pressed to get the same performances from Strus and Vincent. And I forgot to mention Duncan Robinson. Robinson was big the other night. It's going to be hard for them to give those kind of contributions every game. And is Michael Porter Jr. going to only have 3 points again?
No.
We'll see.
Yeah, and Strus really set the table, hitting those 3-pointers early, and then leading their way to 51 points and 3-pointers overall, making that the deciding factor, as we mentioned in yesterday's show. 51 points from 3-pointers alone, and you win by 3 points. Guess what the reason why you won the game? 3 points, because of your 3-pointers. Everything else, Denver pretty much had the upper hand, and the deciding factor was what they started off with when Strus was hitting those threes early on. So we could pack that.
And you never know. Jimmy hasn't had that game where he's exploded yet. He could come out and say, hey, Strus is missing. Caleb Martin's not giving us anything. Let me go to work. That's what Jokic did in game 2. He wasn't getting much help, and Jokic went to work. They just came up short.
But Jamal Murray needs that game also. We know he has that in him as well, that 30-plus game that's going to ignite the team. We're going to have that, both teams having the ability to do that. I think all the time with an NBA team, period, a lot of these players, at least the majority of these players, even on the bench, at one time or another, they're such phenomenal athletes. They're so skilled because the NBA is the highest level. At some point, almost anybody on these teams, when you get to this point, can put up those ridiculous numbers for one night only. It might be their Buster Douglas night against Mike Tyson, where they can get that one night only. They could drop that 40 when Homeboy was averaging like 12 points a game for the season.
Yeah, I think back to that Lakers-Celtics series, Game 7, when Kobe was struggling, Ron Artest came up big. Alex Ariza came up big. Yeah. And you just never know.
Was that Trevor Ariza?
Or Trevor Ariza, yeah. Baseball.
Yeah. I think I saw a story about him just the other day. But yeah, but Ron Artest was always a solid player anyway. You expect him to be a goon.
Yeah, but that game he was splashing threes.
He just had it. He just felt it. You knew he was an elite player, a good player in his role, and you knew he could score some when he needed to, but you didn't expect him to splash it from the outside and still bang around in the inside and still be the goon he was. And for one night only, that's what he did, and it was needed. So when the big star like Kobe having his struggles, these guys step up, make it happen. Now, I think both teams have those kind of players. I think, in fact, Miami may have more of those kinds of players. Probably not as talented, but they have more of those kinds of players, who could just step up and do that on any given night. And the Tyler Hero factor may be coming tomorrow, even though he has some soreness in his hand. So he says, or is that a reason for them to say, you know what, we're doing well without you, man. Kind of just hang out till next year.
Yeah, I haven't heard any new information on that. He might be a game time decision. We'll see how it goes. We'll probably hear something tomorrow morning, early afternoon.
But Vegas wants to know right now. They want to know right now. They want to do the NFL thing. We don't want you gambling, but we'll let you know just in time what's going to happen when Tyler Hero entering this game. But I don't think whether he comes in or not, it affects the line anyway. That 2.5 has been pretty doggone solid. Someone told me that it went up to 3. Even if it did, it's still a solid line nonetheless. I still think that Miami, at least for the first game, the buzz in that stadium is going to get them over the hump. But I think like the Florida Panthers just over there with them down in South Florida, they may fizzle out because the better team is going to eventually show it, and the battle of attrition will be the reason why Denver wins it. But, hey, I'm not going to keep on throwing water on the parade for Miami. I mean, we've been doing that long enough. They're still here. So,
I hope Tyler Hero does play. I'd like to see, what he can add for the Heat. Come off the bench, hit a 3, or go to the bucket, get an and 1, see if he can give them a spark. Let's see what he has.
Well, he was a sixth man before anyway, so it's not unfamiliar territory with him coming off to ignite the team if he needs to. And for people who kind of, watch this game, don't expect Tyler Hero to come in and play for 30 minutes, 25 minutes. I think 12 minutes, 15 minutes may be the limit for him in a playoff game, especially when other guys have had continuity and chemistry and have been relatively hot up until this point.
Yeah, I think it'll depend on how he looks, how he performs. And if he gives the team a spark, hey, ride it until he has to come out. I'm sure he's going to get winded, but or if he's struggling right off the bat, sub for him.
Yep. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal. They've already proven they could win without him. And if he came in and wasn't himself, I think they can identify it immediately. There's two things that can happen. He could come out and shoot the lights out like Tyler Hero can do on occasion, or he could come in and kind of fizzle a little quickly, and Coach Spo's like, you know what, in the first 6 minutes, you don't have it. We'll put you in intermittently if need be. Let the other guys who've been getting us to this point continue to let us run with this game. And they'll be probably better off because of it. But we'll find out tomorrow when this game is playing. Of course, we'll have our show tomorrow just as well, as we're trying to get this show done 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. We have to keep that Friday open because when the football season starts, we have to play homage to the high school football players. We got to go out there and watch some high school football. At least I do here in the state of Florida, some of the greatest football in the country, high school-wise. So why not do that? But Monday through Thursday is where we will have the show, the Sports Bag Bros podcast. This is our 5th episode. Glad to have you with us once again on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. More importantly, give us the thumbs up, like this, share this, because that's what helps the algorithm get out there to other sports heads who want to have the conversation of sports. In addition, we have Spotify as well. Download this for your long trip, your short trip. If you're just regular tripping, get that. Listen to the sports broadcast. Buy us
at work. Listen to us at work. Be quick. Yeah. 45 minutes to an hour.
Yes, keep your job. Keep your job. You stay quiet, just listen to what's going on. And I hope we're putting up a nice, productive show that's pretty comprehensive. And I think there's more of that to come because we're getting to that time of year anyways. Once basketball is over, we don't talk a lot of hockey, but it's a nice story with the Florida Panthers, even though it's kind of going down the drain right now against the Las Vegas Knights. But we don't talk about a lot of hockey. But once hockey and basketball are gone, and the All-Star break hasn't happened in baseball, this is the black hole of sports talk, whether it's radio or anything on the internet, where there's not much going on until football starts at the end of July with all of the SEC media days, ACC media day, collegiate football. And then, of course, at the end of the month, the NFL camps start, and then you have your Hall of Fame game where the Jets will be showing up, dropping some dimes, and Canton in August. Anyways, I just thought
we'll have the NBA draft coming up.
Yeah,
we have some boxing, some MMA.
Oh yeah, the boxing, MMA. You know what? I kind of forgot. We're covering everything. So boxing, whatever. even though you hear the story about boxing being dead, boxing's not dead, especially with these fights we have coming up. I mean, the Steve Fulton, the New Way fight. Even this weekend, on the 10th, you have Josh Taylor and Teofimo Lopez fighting one another. And then, of course, the granddaddy of them all, Errol Spence and Bud Crawford in July. And
yeah, I think Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis, they set the tone, you know, and I'm glad it happened because they put some pressure on Bud and Spence to work it out, and they did. And hopefully we can see maybe Canelo get in the ring with Benavidez.
That would be excellent, bro. If they get in the year
fight fans want to see, you know, that we've been asking for.
If Benavidez can get in there with Canelo by the end of this year, you know, it would typically be in September, which is the Mexican New Year, Independence Day. Yeah, exactly. The Mexican Independence Day. For those of you who can't see, Bias has the old Mexican hat on there. He pointed to the emblem up there. Yeah, because of a very proud Mexican fight fan and a Mexican himself. So, yeah, that's where we're going with this. But, yeah, I'll tell you what, man, if Canelo can close the door with Benavidez in September, man, and then someone else could help us out in December, right, before Christmas, man, this would be one of the best boxing years in a long time.
I mean, I don't think the Bivol rematch is happening. Canelo says same terms as the first fight. Why would Bivol and his camp agree to the same terms after he whipped his ass the first fight?
Wait a minute, he wants more money than Bivol after losing the first fight?
Well, not only more money, he wants the exact same terms. Bivol wants to fight at 168 because he wants to take his belt.
Exactly.
Canelo says no, 175 and same terms. Well, you lost the fight, so you got to give up something. Well, and to me, that's code for I don't want the rematch.
Exactly. You know what? You know how fighters can be. They'll say one thing, but they'll just either price themselves out or talk themselves out of a fight or circumstance themselves out of a fight. We've been around boxing for now decades. We've seen the tango. We've seen the things the boxers do, the things they say when, you know, I know the business part of it. I understand the business part of it, but the business has already been done. This isn't something that we don't know of. This is a continuation of what happened in the first fight. And I think it will be the same result if they meet again, regardless of weight. Even though Bivol is willing to go down to 168 and he may lose a little bit of strength from that, his boxing skills is what got it done. So whether it's 168 or 175, he's going to win. But from a business standpoint, Canelo still has the ego, wants all of the championships at 168, and he knows if he fights at 175 again and loses, he gets to keep the belts at 168. You know what I mean? But if Bivol goes down there, cleans up the belts by beating Canelo, goes back to 175, the belts are splintered again, and then everybody gets the round robin to get the belts. And Canelo's too old right now, I think, to do a Andre Ward style Super 6 to get him back.
Yeah. Speaking of Andre Ward, have you seen the SOG on Showtime?
No, I have not. You know, Andre the boxer who made the show with us, he let me know about it, that it just got dropped. I didn't see it, but he said it was a good damn documentary.
It was very good. I watched it over the weekend. It's very good. And you get a better understanding for why he retired when he did.
See, this is what a lot of people, I guess, you know, we say like it's a given. People just don't understand the behind the scenes, not only of boxing, but even of other sports, why people decide to retire. We look at them for the time they're in the ring or the time they're on the football field or baseball or diamond, and we just assume that they're at their best. Why would you want to retire? Why are you even talking about retirement when in the background, injuries is one of these things? Like Rocky Marciano, for instance, you know, he retired. He was scared of St. Liston. First of all, he was out way before St. Liston. St. Liston already had one loss in like less than 15 fights before when Marciano was about to retire. A year before he retired.
He saw him coming 8 years in advance.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. And then he has a back injury, which people don't talk about because in boxing, you know how tribal boxing can be. People are more interested in their favorite or their ethnicity or nationality than they are in the fighter himself. So they'll just make up anything that makes them feel better and disparage the other fighter. But then, you know, he tried coming back. He was going to fight Ingemar Johansson. He worked out for 3 weeks and decided, you know what, never mind. So his best decision was not making the decision not to come back. And we see him right now immortalized at 49-0 for a heavyweight. So Floyd, no, your fight record of 50-0 is not a record. A heavyweight record of a champion is 49-0 anyway. You know, this thing just went off the rails just now. But nevertheless.
And plus he fought Conor McGregor for one of those fights. So really he's 49 come on.
You fought a sub-novice, a guy who never fought in the amateurs, someone who just kind of like.
It was his pro boxing debut.
He watched a few Rocky movies, got hyped up, decided he wanted to go to the gym, called you out. He had a name, made some money. They both made good money. And Floyd won. But come on, Floyd would have won regardless.
He needed oxygen after the third round, man.
And Floyd didn't fight the way Floyd fights at all in that fight. Floyd knew it was a joke. Floyd's been in the game long enough. His muscle memory alone won that fight. Floyd was walking him down, taking shots that he knew he could take in that fight. And that's not the way Floyd fights. He didn't do anything that he's known for in that fight and still got a knockout when he hadn't knocked any real boxer out in years before that. So that should let you know. But, in this combat sport, and especially when you try to compare MMA to boxing, people are going to just, if you're an MMA fan, you're going to have one thing to say. If you're a boxing fan, you're going to have another thing to say. But we saw the results in the boxing ring. Why doesn't he go into the octagon? Because Floyd knows better. He'll lose in the octagon, and that's not making money. Making money is in the boxing ring, and it's always been that way, and it will always be that way. So
he has no other skills besides boxing. He would have no chance in the octagon. But the reason why I was celebrating is the White Sox just beat the Yankees 3-2.
I didn't hear that. 3-2.
That's why I told you.
Yeah, now I know. My Yankees, look, the whole AFC, the whole American League East is over 500 right now. That's sick in its own right. You know what I mean? There isn't another division out there that has a team that's even 500. The worst team has 500. The AL East, everyone's over 500 right now. That's crazy, and it's going to put quite a few teams into the playoffs. Hey, that's one game out of a 3-game series. The Yankees will be back, and our pitching is just horrendous. I'm disappointed in that pitching, but nevertheless, we'll get around to that as the season continues to go, as Aaron Judge continues to do what Aaron Judge does, and that's, of course, mentioning that Luis Arise. They say, please rise when it comes to Aaron Judge, when he's about to go hit a home run or 2 or 3. Well, Luis Arise, who plays for the Florida Marlins, chasing 400, and we're in June now. So how big a story is this?
Well, we're only a couple months in. He's got a long way to go, but I believe he's like in the top 10 or 12 all-time for batting average after the first 60, 61 games.
Yeah.
And being a White Sox fan, I saw him a lot of games playing for the Twins. That guy can hit. He broke up a no-hitter last year. The guy can just hit. He barely strikes out. He makes contact a lot. Will he hit 400? I highly doubt it. But, it's fun to talk about.
Absolutely.
If he's in September hitting 395, hey, can he handle the pressure? Because, media's going to be following him, asking him questions.
Yep.
We'll be able to handle it. But, we still got a long way to get to September.
Yeah, and those heavy records like that really matter. We know Ted Williams. We keep talking about Ted Williams, the last one to hit 400. But God, man, it's absolutely insane when the pressure really gets to you. I remember Roger Maris talking about it when he was going for his number 61 as a home run, for home runs, and his hair starts falling out. You know what I mean? And the pressure was on him. I believe he might have even gotten an ulcer, a whole lot of things just because of the pressure. And that was back then. There was no social media. There was just television and radio. Now we have everything. You might even have your own Facebook page. People decide they want to talk about it. All of this stuff that's going on right now. But just as impressive as his 399.
No MLB network.
Everywhere.
Baseball Tonight.
It's 24/7. And then you know what? When you do things of that nature, it starts trickling over to other sports. You'll have a football broadcast talking about, so-and-so just hit, with 400. Other sports will recognize it. So, the whole world.
Today he's up to 397.
397?
No, I'm saying I can hear that during the football broadcast.
No, exactly, because right now he's at 399. But I think just as important, his on base percentage 450. Bro, this dude's almost guaranteed twice.
When I heard he was traded, I was so happy. I was like, yes, he's out of the division. But why would the Twins trade him?
I'm about to say the same.
I don't understand that. That man can hit.
Yeah, he's a pure hitter. And that's what we're missing in the Major League Baseball these days. You have guys who just want to swing for the fences. No one's making contact. You have people out there with 198 batting averages still in the major leagues. They should be designated for assignment about 20 years ago.
You would think so.
Like that.
DFA.
But his on base percentage of 450. That means nearly half the time, he's getting on base. Dudes are afraid of him. But I said, man, look, the way baseball is right now, when everyone's swinging for the fences, no one's trying to be like Tony Gwynn or Wade Boggs or Don Mattingly, who put the bat on the ball. And even back then, you had guys who hit pretty well, home runs, and they still were putting the bat on the ball. But this guy struck out what? Let me see. He struck out 11 times this year. 11 times, that's it. That's Aaron Judge on the West Coast swing. That's it. That's Aaron Judge on the West Coast swing right there. He's been walking.
Yeah, like I mentioned, he's a contact hitter. He's going to put the ball in play.
Oh, absolutely. And those numbers prove it. I mean, 14 walks, 11 strikeouts, and he's been at bat over 200 times, still at the 399 batting average. This is somebody you can root for, too. And he's also been a big help for the Florida Marlins, who are perpetual cellar dwellers, who are now 5 games over 500, and maybe 6 after tonight because they were leading 6-1, heading into the latter part of the game. But yeah, he's definitely has been the spark plug they needed. And, it's always a nice, I guess, in the state of Florida when the Marlins are doing well. And right now they are, and he's certainly leading the way, and they're getting a lot of shine because of what he's doing. I hope he can keep it up.
I just talked about how I was happy he got traded. The Marlins will be in Chicago this weekend, so they'll have to deal with him.
Oh, yeah, exactly. You're going to have to deal with him. Hey, you know what? You might be witnessing some history. It's like after the fact, like as the season goes on and they do something special, or even he just does something special, you can say, he played my team. He did this against my team. But you know what? It's a cap in the feather nonetheless, because even with the Yankees, if someone was other than the Red Sox was being special, I can live with it if they do it against the Yankees. You know what I mean? As long as it's not too embarrassing, like a perfect game, I can live with it. I can deal with a combined no-hitter, which has happened against the Yankees. I can live with it begrudgingly. But outside of the Red Sox, it's not. I can witness history and acknowledge it and accept it and respect it. So from there, we could go a little bit backwards on this. We don't normally go backwards, but the Kyrie Irving trying to recruit LeBron James to the Dallas Mavericks, not the other way around. LeBron James and Kyrie meeting up in LA. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I applaud Kyrie for trying to improve the Mavericks roster, but realistically, Bron is going to UCLA, and I don't even think, unless LeBron takes a huge pay cut, I don't even think the money works. So yeah, there's no way LeBron's going to Dallas. He wants to play with Bronny. Bronny's going to be playing at UCLA. I'm sure he'll be able to make it. USC, my bad. Okay. And he plans to attend a few games here and there, I'm sure. And it'd be much more difficult if he's playing in Dallas. So yeah. I don't.
But you know what? At this point in LeBron's life, I know money's money, regardless, especially the huge money they're getting. Is money going to be a deciding factor? Will this guy not? If he took some type of not his hometown, but just a team hometown discount, it wouldn't be too low, but it'll be reasonable. They say like we'll give you $20 million instead of $38 million. I mean, he's at that point now as a billionaire, an active billionaire in the NBA. He could say, you know what, I can do that. I can keep this on cruise control until little Bronny gets out of here. If he gets out of here, which is probably likely going to happen, kind of like Shaq's son got into the NBA, probably didn't need to at this moment. But anyways, will he be willing to take one of those sweetheart deals? I think Luka is the one who has to give it the yes or no, not just Mark Cuban.
Yeah, well, I don't know how Luka would feel about it. I did see a headline. I didn't read the article, but it read that Luka was unhappy with Kyrie recruiting.
Exactly.
Didn't mention any names. Just stated that he was unhappy with his recruiting.
Well, there's only one name that matters. Who else is he asking to come there? Kyrie needs someone like LeBron in order to make something happen again, because apparently he can't get it done by himself, as we have already seen. And at the latter part of LeBron's career, well, he hasn't gotten much done. I mean, outside the bubble championship, but nevertheless, it's Luka's team, and Kyrie's been nothing but problems for every team he has been with, and he doesn't need that to happen here. I mean, the team regressed with him there this past season with Luka.
Even if LeBron did go to Dallas, took a pay cut, I don't see how it works. When Kyrie got traded to the Mavericks, I said immediately, that's not going to work. Kyrie's not a spot-up shooter. He's not going to stand out by the three-point line and wait for Luka to pass him the ball. Neither is LeBron.
Nope. And there's only one basketball. So, yeah, the dynamic of it doesn't work in any way. It doesn't even look right or even sound right. You can just call them the big three because they're big, prominent names, three big, prominent names. But I just don't see the chemistry working at all. I mean, and then let alone in the locker room. And then, of course, Kyrie's cerebral shenanigans that he loves to play. Something's going to happen throughout the course of the season. And LeBron trying to get his way, we already know how that goes down.
Yeah, I think LeBron stays in LA.
Yeah, LeBron needs to stay in LA and see if he can get the job done there. This guy's like on the NBA tour, you know, and his legacy, I don't think his legacy is going to get burned. I think his legacy is already etched in stone. It can only be added to. I don't believe it can be taken away from because he's accomplished so much, compiled so much. And, you know, and the way the NBA is right now, this is the culture of the NBA. Guys get together to win championships with the exception of Giannis, you know, and other teams that are kind of building around their young stars and trying to get that same thing going for a championship. So finally, with that said, we can move on to our final sport of the evening, and that is football starting up. I've already mentioned that the camps are starting up in the NFL just at the end of next month. The Kansas City Chiefs, the defending NFL champs, are they now a dynasty led by Patrick Mahomes?
Not quite yet. No, I don't think so. They haven't even repeated. You know, they didn't win their championships back to back. So I'm not ready to call them a dynasty.
So if they win every other year, will they be a dynasty? Because Mahomes is still young enough to win every other year. You know, I don't think Eric Bieniemy is going to be a factor now that he's in Washington. I think it's been the Patrick Mahomes story. I think it's been his team. It's been the Andy Reid offensive mind overseeing Eric Bieniemy. Some people don't want to hear that. They want to give Eric Bieniemy more credit, in my opinion, than he deserves. We'll find out how great he is out there in Washington. You know what I'm saying? Because if he does anything,
You froze on me. I don't know if you're talking or not, but let me just say, if the Chiefs win 3 championships in 5 years, then I'd be ready to call them a dynasty. But we have to wait and see what else they do. They're not done yet, but at this time, I would not call them a dynasty. Yeah, Trav, I don't know if you're talking. So let me just tell you my story about my friend that I mentioned yesterday and his broken pinky toe. So we were playing football on a Sunday. Well, it was before all the guys got there. We started warming up, and people were messing around kicking field goals. And my one friend says, hey, to my other friend, hey, hold the ball for me. So he holds the ball down, and he says, no, put it on your foot. So he puts it on his foot, and bam, he kicked the crap out of his foot instead of the ball, broke his toe. And like I mentioned yesterday, he had to cut out the part of his shoe to relieve pressure from his pinky toe. And I still bring that up to him every now and then. I laugh about it. He tells the story, like how stupid it was of him to do that and the stupid motherfucker that kicked him in the foot. And, you know, it's just hilarious. But a few weeks after that, he's walking around limping with his broken toe. He was messing around wrestling with another friend of ours. And he was getting the better of him, had him in the headlock. And the other guy tried to stomp on his toe. So he cracked him. He stole on him. He's like, man, what are you doing? He's like, you trying to step on my pinky toe, man. It was just so, man, those times were just so funny, at least to me. I didn't feel the pain, but my friend, he had to sit out basketball games. We'd be playing without him. He'd be trying to be a coach on the sideline with his broken toe. But yeah, that's about it. Trav, I don't know if you're out there, but yeah, that's about it. We could end the show here. I just want to say again, Follow us on Facebook, Sports Bag Bros. We just started our Twitter account, Sports Bag Bros. Follow us there. You can catch us here on YouTube or listen to us on Spotify, Sports Bag Bros. This is episode 5. We'll be back tomorrow with episode 6. Call Trav, see what's going on here. Let's see if he answers. No. I don't know what's going on. I'm on the screen by myself. Hello?
Hello, yeah. Did you get my message? Yeah, I'm telling you that my damn Wi-Fi went out. I'm trying to keep the show. I'm trying to save the show here.
I don't know if it's still recording, but it's showing live 5108.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's still going. I'm on screen by myself.
Oh, wow.
But you're on speakerphone, so if you want to say something.
God. I'm actually have to edit this. Hold on.
Oh, snap.
There you go.
Well, yeah, we're still alive if you want to see that.
I told a story about my friend, his toe and everything. So I don't know if you want to watch it.
The whole story about your friend and his toe.
Yeah. Well, I was by myself. We were out of topics. I said, well, let me tell the story.
Oh, wow, because I wasn't around, man. I'm still waiting for this thing to come back up. We had some internet issues, some technical issues. Please stand by. And you had a chance to tell the story. And I was kind of waiting for the story, man.
I had to improvise. You know, the last time when you froze, you said you could still hear me. So I was like, well, I don't know if you're talking, but let me just tell the story. So I told the story.
Oh, wow. So I guess I'm going to have to really do some editing on this one. We're live right now. Hey, this is what happens when you're doing things live. Well, we're doing it live ourselves. We're going to ultimately record this and chop it up and do all those things you got to do for YouTube to be able to accept it. But anyways, well, I guess I'll hear the story when I hear the story during editing. So now I'm going to have to learn editing all over again because I haven't edited in a while, man. I've been a lazy SOB as of late. But anyway, well, I guess we better close the show right now because that's all, folks.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow night, episode 6.
Yeah, episode
Sports
6
Bag Brothers.
Episode 6. Episode 6 coming up, and you have the NBA Finals of Miami now at home playing against the Denver Nuggets in Game 3, trying to go up 2-1 against the best team in the NBA, at least record-wise and probably overall. We'll find out tomorrow. We'll talk during the game because this will be around 9 o'clock, but it's recorded, so it doesn't matter whether it's 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. You're going to get a chance to hear about it. He's biased. I'm Trav. These are the Sports Bros podcast. That's it. That's all, folks. Good night. Holy crap.